Call to order. Adoption of the agenda.
The council adopt the agenda as presented.
Adoption. Motion. I mean.
Right here.
Doing good already. All in favor? Adoption of the minutes.
No minutes.
We don't have to have introduction of items.
None. Oh, yes. Don't we? None?
Well, it's under new business, but it goes in with that.
Okay.
Public hearings? None. Delegation?
The council hear the delegation from the Pooskabee Elementary Pat Amber Moment.
You're on.
Yeah. Well,
So anybody that wants to volunteer, we're still looking for volunteers like crazy, and parents are very busy. But if you want to volunteer, you're welcome to go into the school and get a criminal check form from the secretary, and then get it filled out with the RCMP in Dawson and hand it into the district office. And for any opportunities to volunteer, you can always contact the school office or me.
how much did that cost?
It's free if you go through the school. It doesn't cost you anything. So, and for volunteer opportunities, you can always contact me, the Facebook page for the Pooskabee PAC, or the school. We were told that you guys would like to know how you can help us if there's anything that we needed. So busing for field trips usually runs about 800 to 1,000 a year, and it depends on the teachers, and we haven't like whole new staff this year, so we're not exactly sure where that number's going to run this year until they start giving us requests for field trips. We talked a little bit about swimming lessons because our school doesn't provide them right now, but the Ken Borks Aquatic Center doesn't have the staffing to watch more than 20 children in the pool right now, which means we'd only be able to do kindergarten right now. So we're not looking at it this year, but it's something to look at in the future. One thing that we were really interested in doing and working with the village for is ice skating rental shed. We have that beautiful ice rink right outside of the school, and it hasn't been utilized by the school. So we've talked to the district. If we get students to sign, or the parents to sign a permission form like we do for the village for a yearly one, then the students can actually go over there for field trips. And we have parent volunteers. We have to have one on the ice and one off of the ice for the classes to do the field trip. But the kids have to have a registered hockey helmet for being on the ice, and they have to have skates. And a lot of our students don't have skates to begin with. So we're looking at hopefully working with you guys to do an ice skate rental shed of some sort. We have a bunch of parents that are willing to donate their kids' old figure skates and ice hockey skates, and helmets and stuff. So we were hoping we could work in the future with that with you guys, and then provide that to the school at a free charge, so then the kids can have access to that more freely, so we can actually start utilizing it. But then it would give you guys the opportunity to rent the skates out and hopefully turn a little bit of a profit towards maintenance, maybe on the ice rink type thing. And right now our school is focused primarily on fundraising, and we're saving to put more playground equipment up, and we're looking at getting some buddy benches for the playground.
What's a fun bench?
It's just a bench that's colorful and pretty, but as long as the teachers preach it properly, it's a bench. So if a child doesn't feel like they're being played with, or they don't feel like they have somebody to play with, they can go sit on the bench, and then it lets kids know that there's a child that's feeling left out, and they can go and invite them to play with them.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more, it's a way for kids to recognize that a child's feeling left out, and to help with the inclusion of kids that otherwise would be excluded from activities on the playground. So we're looking at putting a few of those in, and playground equipment, because the school's busting at its seams and the playground's busting at its seams too. So hopefully get more stuff in.
Okay. So we will take it under consideration.
And I did put my information there if you guys want
Yes.
to get a hold of me or have any questions.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good report. Come back and see us again.
Hurry. We don't want to get rid of you too fast. Unfinished business and business arising from the minutes. Well, we don't have any minutes, so we don't have any unfinished business. New business.
8.1, the council increased the public works staff complement by 1 permanent full-time role.
First,
Please, need a second.
second,
Here, second.
in favor? Discussion? I think I knew these before. Yes.
I would like to support the increase in public works staff. Make the motion that we approve.
It's already in the, on the floor.
Okay.
This is just discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, discussion. You want to fill us in? You want to fill us in?
Happy to answer any questions council might have. I tried to keep the report short and to the point without sharing some information that's not totally concrete yet. So part of this is really two parts. One, looking at the individual we have right now, who is fitting very well with Public Works. That person was hired temporarily this summer to fill a temporary vacancy. They're doing very well. Everybody's happy with their performance, and as we can see in the report here, they've definitely got a skill set that we're looking for overall. So, council's kind of shared a few times, both throughout the year and even in the Christine Venti presentation, that maintenance, in future years is something we want to step our game up with. Of course, having individuals to do that with this skill set is definitely desirable. And then last but not least, speaking to some of our current staff complement, there's a possibility that they might be looking to retire, or one individual might be looking at retiring in the next couple of years. Not that they've actually stated that formally, but part of my role is to look at succession planning for the village, and that individual is at the age where I believe they're likely going to start doing that. And so, we think this would be a good fit for the organization right now. I think from a budget standpoint, the impact, of course, adding a person, it's impossible to do that with no financial impact. But depending on where council wants to see the overall budget go next year, we can shuffle things around a little bit so that, the full cost of that estimated $58,000 to $60,000 for that person wouldn't necessarily be reflected into the budget. So we maybe scale back a summer student. I have looked at the most recent trial balance too. We're about $140,000 under budget in public works overall. Part of what I commented here is that we could compress a few of the accounts to some of those more not quite fringe accounts, but ones the more discretionary ones, I guess we could say. So moving money from one line to the other so that the overall impact is minimized. But I definitely won't mislead council. Like I say, we can't add a person to the department without some degree of financial impact to the department overall.
Yes.
Me? So, this was a temporary position that this person was in, and I'm assuming that was a short-term leave?
It was, yeah.
Okay, and then we also have a long-term that's on leave right now, right?
No,
That person's off?
that person's come back. That's the one we're referring to.
Part-time?
There was an individual off on medical leave here this summer.
That's the one, but there's another one, isn't there?
No.
No, so you only had one person on
Medical leave.
On
leave?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you pay for those leaves, right?
No, we pay for those leaves after 2 weeks, for 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, the medical plan picks up the cost.
Picks that up, okay. So, what some of my concerns are is that, number one, like when these people get on, they're in the union, and they need a job description and job title, like what title and description are you going to have for somebody who's going to be doing these things?
Mhm. So the individual is likely going to be titled a public works. There's in our union agreement. There's only a few titles that are actually in the union agreement with a set wage next to that individual.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like them all because they're not super descriptive of necessarily all the duties, but So we'll fit that individual in there. They will be at the bottom of the seniority roll, of course, because they're just coming on board versus the other employees now, but,
Oh, yeah, I understand that end of it, but then, I mean, there's the certification, and who else is certified on there to take that position? Of course, there isn't anybody other than who's there right now, right? So why aren't we waiting for that person to go before we go for another one? Because right now you have 5 staff, 4 staff, and your foreman.
no, three full-time people and the public works manager, who's also the fire chief.
Okay, and then they're working 5 10-hour shifts,
No, 5 8-hour shifts.
5 8 hours.
Monday to Friday, yeah.
Oh, I thought they were starting at 6:30 and ending at,
2 of them are
4:30.
2 of them are right now. So this individual's still on staff, and we've been able to keep them because we've had the room in the staff budget to do that, pending council's decision. So if the decision tonight is yes, then we're going to carry on with that employee. If not, we'll probably have to let them go here at the end of the year. But so right now we've got 2 staff members that are starting at 6:30 and they're working from 6:30 to 2:30, and 2 of the other staff are starting at 7:30 and they're working from 7:30 to 3:30.
oh,
And
okay.
we've shifted it that way because what we were finding was when we were coming in, and when everyone was coming in at 7:30, it was a rush to try to get the sidewalks done and salt
Yeah, I
done.
understand
Yeah,
that.
right. So we've shifted it a little bit to accommodate that.
I understand that part of it. So this person is a heavy-duty mechanic and a certified carpenter. Isn't it just cheaper to just get somebody to come in and do those things rather than hire?
No. Heavy duty mechanics, if we contracted a job for a heavy duty mechanic, we're in the $100 to $125 an hour range. We just had, I won't mention who, but we just had a company come in and do some work on a piece of our heavy equipment, and they were certified mechanic with their own truck, and we were billed $210 an hour for that individual.
Totally, but I mean, does it equal $60,000 and more?
It gets there pretty quick, but like I say, so just to give you an example on this employee, the work that was done on the post office this summer was almost done entirely by this individual.
That answers a lot. So you, a certified carpenter, so we won't need anybody to come in anymore, or?
No, I definitely wouldn't say that. The individual would be able to do whatever we can do within the parameters of our staffing. So not to say that we wouldn't have to hire contractors to do stuff, but
Yeah, well, another thing, the summer students, how many did you apply for in the summer?
4.
You applied for 4 and you got 3?
We applied for 4. We hired 3. I don't recall the exact number, but possibly 7 or 8 resumes came across our desk, and we were actually qualified to do the work.
Well, a concern of mine is that these people who are at university and colleges and whatever, and they have their summers, is that they really rely on these little short-term jobs in order to keep themselves going with tuition and so on and so forth. And we're going to close the door because we want to get this person in there.
Not necessarily, again, Councilor Hubert, that's why I mentioned in there, we can, if we want to look at doing that, we can do it to compress the budget, move money for the full-time employee from summer students into full-time. But the number of summer students that council budgets for is entirely at your guys' discretion again. So if this year council decides we want to go on a really big maintenance program and have everything looking spick and span, 110% best it's ever been, throughout the summer, then maybe council directs me to try and five summer students. I don't know. That's entirely up to you guys.
No, I mean, I just want something that works and works for everyone. And once you hire somebody into the union and you create that position, it's there. And I do not know about, I would love to see the job title and description that fits all of this. Because I don't know if that exists.
I may have it. Let me take a look.
And I mean, creating problems within a union isn't a good idea either.
No,
Because when they start putting in all their complaints, and they would, and could.
we've actually had not a single one over the last 3.5 years.
I don't think that our people down there really know the power that they have. But I know what power is with the union, and it is a tough.
It can be, and we're up for collective bargaining this year as well. 2020, our union agreement expires, so. You are correct, once we open up that position, there's sort of an enduring obligation to it.
Yes.
Part of the interesting reason why this fits right now is we've had a number of months to test out this individual and make sure they fit. So we're not hiring them blind, we're hiring somebody that we know fits with the staff, doesn't have conflicts, shows up to work on time, and, you know, we've seen in the operation that there's definitely enough work for them, so.
But there are other people who will come along, and even this person may come along when that time comes, when that person decides to retire. We don't have to open up this kettle of fish and say, these are the exact amount of people that we're going to have.
If an individual retires, we're actually not required to replace them unless.
I
we
know
want
you're
to.
not required, but of course we would. Why wouldn't we? We would be insane. He's the only operator, right?
Well, and that's part of it too, right?
And there's some really good operators out there. Like, I mean, when that
And in a lot of,
comes up,
yeah. And in a lot of
then
cases,
we deal
the
with
wages
it.
in industry are higher than we're paying. So when we find somebody that fits those requirements and have those skills and wants to work with us, it's.
There are desperate people out there, Chris,
Yeah.
and they're really good operators. It's a good time. And there are people that want that security, that live in Puskippi and say, or in the area and say, this is the job for me.
So we would likely be putting the individual in somewhere into these two categories, either public works operator or public works laborer. So we're out in there for that break. But like I mentioned, these are the job titles according to the union manual that we're allowed to title people. So it is what it is. I might look at redoing that in the collective bargaining because I don't like a few of these titles, right? Deputy finance clerk being one of them. We no longer have park attendants, so we've got to remove that.
Yeah,
And so
that's just a little,
yeah. Yeah, I can't see the union having
Housekeeping.
an issue with that.
yeah, it won't be. Yes, anyway, my opinion is, I would rather wait, because otherwise, we have somebody on the books, and it's permanent. And I'm sure that this person will come back. Because all the reasons that you've given me, I don't think are enough at this time.
Okay. Fair enough.
You have anything to say, Ken?
Question.
Okay.
Is there a way to continue temporarily without inclusion into the collective agreement?
No, not so long they have to be.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that.
Up to the point where this other individual decides to leave, should they, and then should they not, then we have,
Give them a month's holiday and then.
I shared it with the chair prior to the meeting, but this, you know, the employees shared with us that his previous employer was trying to get him back. And part of the reason this is in front of you guys now as opposed to in January or February when we should be properly looking at budgeting is because he's asked us, guys, I need to know, do I have a future here or am I going back to my previous employer? And I don't want that to sound the way that sounds, you know what I mean? Like, hey,
No,
give me
I
something,
can
or,
understand.
you know what I
See,
mean? Yeah.
it's somebody in Poos that wants a job in Poos, and they want that commitment and that security.
Yeah.
And that's why they'll accept doing this.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that comes.
Yes, and it's forever.
Yeah.
It's not going to disappear.
Yeah, no, this could be a 15-year career for this individual out into retirement, for sure.
Could be 40. Look at
This
this.
could be.
Yeah. Yes,
I don't know.
pardon?
I was wondering if we have to discuss it.
No.
No,
If it's,
No,
No,
we're
we're
not
not.
discussing.
no,
names
we're
or
discussing a
anything.
budget
It's a
line
position.
item about adding an
Yeah.
employee. There's no disciplinary, there's no conduct things being discussed here. It's whether or not council's okay. And like I say, this is well ahead of, normally we should be having these operational budgets sometime at the end of February, early March, when I start making those presentations to you. But I think if we're not able to make a commitment to this person before Christmas, we might end up losing them to their previous employer, so. And that, and that sounds as bad as it does for sure, because it's gonna go, well, decide or, I'm off, but, he's actually been talking to us for about a month and a half about that.
Young enough that it can make different.
And we all know who we're talking about, right?
Yes,
It's,
we do.
I wanna make sure to properly use titles and reference and stuff here in the meeting, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if we create a position for him, and then he decides he's going back anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We have to replace him
No,
then-
no, we
because
don't.
he created a position.
No, we don't.
Not through the union?
No, no, we run into an issue if we decide to arbitrarily scale it down ourselves at some point going forward. But if the employee leaves of their own accord,
Like retirement? or
retirement,
moving?
quits, even gets fired, which I can't see happening in this case, but
That'd be tough to do.
yeah, then,
Very tough.
yeah,
especially if
so, then we're actually not required to replace them. And
But-
like I
but-
said, we've got the work going on right now, and that's part of the reason for the presentation, right? We know, that our folks are busy. Busy to the point where, the director is bringing two of them in at 6:30 in the morning to start getting a jump on things for the day because we're that busy throughout even without snow right now, so.
What are
it's-
you doing? The skateboard park or the skate rink?
The rake, the salting, maintaining the equipment. We're into water meters right now. We're doing 5 to 10 water meters a day. There's tons of stuff on the go right now. And there always is, every season. There's maybe,
That's running in community.
that's right, that's it. We're running a $5 million a year municipality and we've got 3 people doing all the work on the public works side. They're definitely busy.
Yes, Tom.
I'm kind of leaning the other way now that you say that we don't have to fill permanently, like through attrition or whatever. If somebody retires or leaves, we won't have to fill that retirement spot. An employee that's got these skills, fits in with our team, which is a big comfort to us, that fit in and wants to stay.
Hasn't caused us any disciplinary issues, and shows up to work on time, does what he's asked to do, works without supervision. All of those things are good skills, and you never know that going into a blind hiring situation. Right? You evaluate somebody, and you're in HR, Counselor Smith, you know that somebody looks awesome on paper, and a month and a half into the role, like, oh my God, is this person ever toxic? Right, so that's why I say this is an interesting opportunity for us, because we've had a chance to test them out for a number of months and they fit well with
And
the
also in our
organization.
budget, we have that, but it's not gonna impact it permanently.
But, I would love to see the job description for this person. Because what can happen is, if they're doing things and somebody else looks at it and says, you know what, I don't like it. And they put in a grievance. And grievances can go and cause an awful lot of cost.
They can.
Yes.
Do you want to table this till Lorraine comes back?
No, well, I already know that this is a recommendation, but I don't believe that. It's enough to have the union. It's enough to have we're already taking on that, right? I mean, anybody can lay a grievance. It, at some point, will come down to grievances, and it could go into arbitration, and then it costs you big money. And we haven't experienced that yet, but we will. I know we will.
So you require a job description before you can make that decision?
No, I'd like to see the job description, because this is a few job descriptions in here that somebody could lay a grievance.
It's a few skills, so this is the one we used for the temporary one, to bring the person on board. Oh, let's see if I can get that bigger for you.
Thank you.
How's that?
Great.
Maybe, there we go, that's probably there we go. So yeah, we look for, skills, equipment, operation is obviously key for us. And like I shared with you guys too, part of the reason, or one factor, I guess, in looking at us switching to a loader over the backhoe, or a loader over the grader, I should say, for snow clearing, was because our most senior operator is that individual who's nearing, potential retirement. Grader operators are extremely hard to find, right? And not only are they extremely hard to find, they're high-paying jobs, and it's tough to find a grader operator who's also got sewer and water and cabinetry and experience that ours does. So we kind of said, you know what? We want all those other skills, so let's scale back from the grader piece and find, anybody can run a wheel loader with a few hours of experience kind of thing. So various trades. Working in a municipal setting would be an asset, and then must present a neat appearance and deal tactfully with members of the public. And then we intentionally keep the duties of public works to be a somewhat expanded version of other duties as assigned. You're a public works person, so you recognize you're going to be working on water and sewer in adverse conditions, running equipment, and long story short, more or less whatever the director of public works feels you need to do that day. And our staff are really good at doing that.
And this would be his job description.
Yeah, we'd likely take this for the most part, maybe sharpen up the language a little bit and expand it just a tad, but that's likely where we're going at.
I still would feel more comfortable if we just waited. There.
If it's something that concerns you, for sure, Councilor Hubert, you can vote against it. No
Yeah.
hard feelings, no, not at all.
Yeah,
No.
I know.
Any more questions?
You could you not create a position for operator / tradesman?
It's kind of there within the confines of those job descriptions. Like I say, one of these two here. There's only one lead hand, of course, allowed, but it's going to be somewhere in there, laborer or operator.
That would kind of alleviate, I think, from Councilor Eber's position, where someone could file a grievance, but no, they couldn't because they're not tradespeople.
So maybe that's something I can deal with through the union negotiations in 2020. I've spoken to both the union stewards. Nobody has anything really, confrontational coming up. We want to sharpen up some of the language around the titles, around holidays and around sick day accumulation and then that type of stuff. So, but like I say, there hasn't been a single grievance for anything filed in the last 3.5 years, and that's part of the beauty of having the right people for the right job, an amicable work environment, and everybody's happy and willing to come to work every day. So
What is it, 1.3% of your gross goes towards your union dues?
I don't know off the top of my head. Scotty, do you know the union contribution, union dues?
For some reason, I want to say 1.7, but that's not
Yeah.
positive.
These guys should get together and look at having a workers' association.
Minority in the union.
Yeah.
That's tough to get rid of.
Yeah, once we're there.
Once you're there, you're there.
And really, unfortunately, talking to staff, the history of the union was self-preservation from the staff. There was a
They have
sense-
Yes.
unions.
I understand that, totally,
Yeah.
totally.
prior to a certain group of politicians, or, you know, a politician in particular, and then in administration, there was never any thought of unionizing here, but people were legitimately worried about whether or not.
Well, true enough, you know, that's a very valid point.
Yes.
And so, you know, you've talked a lot about grievances, Councillor Hebert. Really, the union, in our case, was there to address a problem from, you know, 4 or 5, 6 years ago that isn't present anymore, you know.
Oh, I know.
Nobody
I know.
feels threatened the way they did back in those days, so.
No, but I mean, we have to look forward to the future too. I mean, it's not just
In case we
present.
want to threaten them.
It isn't us, and we can't say what's going to happen within that,
Yeah.
within Public Works or in the office with union.
Does anybody else have any more questions? We put a motion on the floor.
Motion's on the floor,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Speaking for a vote then?
Yep.
All in favor?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Thank you, folks. Maybe I'll leave that open just in case for another fire one or two.
8.2 recommendation.
The council discussed hiring Global FMX for a freestyle motocross show on Canada Day 2020 for a cost of $8,500 plus taxes and accommodation.
Second.
Can we table this one till Lorraine comes back?
No, I think she wants us to talk about it, doesn't she?
Discussion?
Accommodation for how many?
I would like to say that if we were going to do something like this, I would like to collect a toonie per person that goes in there as we used to do down at the park. Because we can't,
Depends on where we have it.
if we've already voted to have it at the Bull Diamonds.
We did?
Well, Canada Day.
Canada.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm thinking we've got to stop doing everything for free. And what's a toonie per person? Like, we're not saying $5, you know what I mean?
how much area do they need, do they say?
Enough, because, you know, they need the runway for the bikes, and then there's the ramps, there's the distance between the ramp, there's the landing ramp, and then a run out, so, you know, probably 100, 150 meters. The thought was that if council was interested in it, we put them along the back fence where Hart Oil Field is, along that stretch there, because we're not really using that. We got parking in part of it, sort of the front part where the skate park is, but, you know. And I do want to mention too, believe it or not, I actually didn't go looking for these guys. They approached us, and they approached us last year, and we didn't have time to bring it forward to you guys. We already had the full plans in motion for Canada Day. But I asked the guys to follow up with me next year. I'll see if council's interested in it. It's expensive.
Yes.
How long does it last?
3 shows, I think he said each show is 20 minutes. And then because it's quite physically demanding to do that. I mean, these guys are doing backflips on it.
We're in the wrong business.
So there's the other thing. If we commit to it and the weather absolutely sucks, so torrential downpours or extremely high crosswind, they won't run for safety of the guys, but we're committed to the cost.
You still have to pay it.
Yes.
So it's a real F,
Yeah.
big F.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
That's it. And, you know, right now, the budget for Canada Day is 40,000. We're under that for this year, but because we were able to carry some Canada Day stuff forward from 2018. In ordinary years, we come within a couple of $1,000 of that budget to try and put on as good a Canada Day as we can within the budget we're given. So we intentionally try to get to that limit to do as much as possible. So if we do this, we probably have to scale back on some bouncy castles and or fireworks or something like that.
Well, we can't do it.
I don't mean eliminate them, but, you know, right now we're spending 6,000 to 7,000 on the fireworks. Fireworks are ridiculously expensive.
They are expensive.
Yeah.
You would think that Dawson Creek does it every day, every night at the Fall Fair.
Is that Dawson Creek or is it Fall Fair?
I don't know.
Fall
I
Fair.
think it's the Fall Fair.
I move
And they
that we
make
receive
fruit
its
fun, don't they?
recognition.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I have concerns about the cost.
Yes.
Yeah,
For an
Insurance,
hour?
yeah.
Okay, 8.3, recommendation.
Council received the 2020-2024 Fire Department Operation Budget for discussion.
Second.
Question?
I just would like to ask, we have now emergency services provided by the fire department that was brought forward by previous council
Yep,
under Mayor Plowright, and it did not go out to the public. And now we have emergency services that is in our budget. And what is the extra cost for that versus just fire service? That is something that
yeah.
what we would like to. But this was something that we've got to discuss, and it was decided by previous council.
So I can't answer that question
No.
directly because there's a lot of little moving parts that form part of the medical calls. What I can share with council is the information from the PowerPoint showing the history of the fire department expenses. So I'll run through this.
Do we basically know how much we have to pay for training for the emergency versus just the fire department training? Because that
Okay.
emergency would be part of
That
our
would- yeah.
emergency
That would
services?
form part of it. I can probably get that number. I know the total emergency or the total training budget's 35,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, 35,700 is what we budget for training. When this report was generated, we had 23,498 in totals. But the fire chief was actually in the process of sending folks on $11,000 of training while that happened. So that number is now 34, 35 already. So, fire department, total budget numbers, right up to last year. So this was around the time where we took on medical calls.
2014,
It was-
2015.
Yeah, and there's a large spike in the number there. We've sort of discussed that one, and I have analyzed both the budgets and the actuals for that year. This was partly due to a change in the compensation for the volunteers. They went in paid on call. And having looked at the actuals for that, the budget for the year was like 5,000 and we ended up spending 35,000 in that year. So just, I don't know who was asleep at the wheel from a budget standpoint, but when you got a $5,000 budget and lands with a $35,000 expense at the end of the year, somebody wasn't managing the cost. But it is what it is really. So, chop this off because of that sort of erroneous, or special case. It was adopted and then rescinded immediately the following year. So the average there is somewhere in this neighborhood, which puts it
I
around.
have a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go back to that other screen for 2019, 2000 and,
Numbers, Mark?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
257. Now, the Peace River Regional District pays 30% of that?
34%.
34% of that. So that brings it, are we paying 257?
No, I thought it was 34% of the fire department. It had
No.
nothing to do with emergency response.
It's 34% of the total departmental budget as approved by council. What they don't fund is capital items. So unless there's a special agreement to fund a capital item, however, they do fund the minor capital items. And I had that discussion at length with the CFO last year because there was some discussion between me and him about the minor capital line there. It's quite big. But what we have in our finance policy is that any item under $10,000 doesn't have to be capitalized. Therefore, it lands here in this minor capital. And what that means is that if we look at the financial statements, big expensive stuff has to be depreciated over time.
Yes.
So what we said was anything under $10,000, we're not keeping track of helmets and bumper gear and depreciating all of that stuff. We'd end up with financial statements that are like 150 pages long because we're depreciating things $200 or $300. So the finance policy was set to say, okay, there's a threshold. Past that, yeah, we don't worry that a helmet depreciates $50 a year. It's irrelevant to the whole thing. But any of those purchases, so the SCBAs, the bunker gear, the boots, the helmets, everything falls into that minor capital line because it's still a new purchase. I know the mayor shared with me she doesn't like those lines in the various budgets, but we really need them for operational efficiency because I wouldn't want to again have a line there that was, you know, the budget for the department would turn into 20 pages because we'd have everything wages, and then a line for boots and helmets and clothes and shirts and so on and so forth, radios, you know, everything that falls into there. So,
It'd be too itemized.
it'd be far, yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
Marlene?
I would like this to be clearer for myself, and I would like it to be clearer for taxpayers. I know that taxpayers believe that they have a volunteer fire department, and they just think that the emergency, I don't even know if there's an emergency response team in there. And that's what I don't like. It just seems like it's convoluted in some kind of way.
Mhm.
And I'd like it to be clear.
Transparent.
Yep. We do as much as we can to bring the budget out to the public. You know, and that's why we hold special budget meetings and you know, I put a breakdown in our tax notices this year about the budget and the costs and where the taxes are coming from. I hear you though. You know, if I'm a member of the public and I don't involve myself in the workings of municipalities, I think, volunteer fire department probably costs us nothing. It's volunteer, right?
Oh, not nothing.
Well, they're next to nothing.
Yeah.
You might not connect those dots and say, wow, this costs us $250,000 a year. We're big numbers here.
Yeah, but it isn't just a fire department.
No.
And it does cost you money to have that emergency response team, and that's what people need to know.
Yeah.
And that is by
Yeah.
choice.
And the thing is, and that's coming
It
back
isn't.
to the original question, you wanted to know how much. I've been struggling with this for a year. I don't know how to actually break out all of just the medical costs from everything else. But what I can say is prior to doing that stuff, we were in the $150,000, $160,000 range. And today we're in the $257,000
Yeah.
range.
So $100,000 for emergency services?
No, and I'll caution you to make that direct connection to Councillor Smith. It's not linear like that.
Oh, okay.
You know.
I guess it couldn't be because it costs the fire department to increase as well.
Yes.
But, I mean, I would like to know, and I'm sure that it can be said, the cost of the training that these people have to maintain
Mhm.
and where they have to go for that training.
Increase
And,
bonus.
I mean, for all we know, maybe 30% of this is for our volunteer fire department and 70% is for our emergency response, which I would be a little offended.
And you guys will recall from this presentation, as a matter of fact, we've seen a trend now where we're actually responding to more medical type calls than we are fire type calls.
Yeah, but that has to be brought to the public. The public knows that we have a volunteer fire department and we have to maintain it because we have houses. It's insurance costs. Do we need that for, what is the emergency response team doing for us? And that's where I think that our people have an obligation to go forward to the public and sell themselves that way. Look, we are an emergency response team. This is what we do. This is why you need us. And that's what I want to see. I want them to do a sales job, ta-da-da-da, and make everybody excited about them. And if they don't, and people say, look, we don't want this, I want somebody to be able to listen to the people.
I actually have to spin that around on you, Councillor Hebert, and say that the fire department performs the service level approved
Oh,
and
the fire
delegated by
department is
council.
amazing.
So if there's somebody that's gonna go to the public and sell the services of the fire department,
It's not the fire
or,
department,
well,
Chris.
but the department in general, I mean, it is the fire department. They're performing medical calls and services. That's actually council's job to sell that to the public, not the fire department. They're simply doing what you guys are asking them to do. And by continuing to adopt that service, you're in effect delegating to them to do that job.
Okay, so then we're the ones that are supposed to be doing that sales pitch.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
you guys sell the budget to the public, because it's council's budget. I propose it to you, you guys adopt it. If members of the public want to know where and why and how we landed on the
Can we
budget.
draft something out that we
I
can put
think
out
that
in
would-
the public?
Are you
Well, I
Right,
think we
that
should face the public.
A
I
referendum?
think we should have
Are
this.
you
And
proposing a
No, I'm
referendum?
not. I'm saying that you know what, at one point when I, just an ordinary taxpayer, but there was a problem. And our mayor stood up in front at the seniors hall and presented, and the public got to say what they thought, and that problem was solved. And it wasn't an argumentative thing, it wasn't a fists on the table kind of conversation. All it was, here we are, we're presenting this to you. Do you want this to continue?
Why not a tea
But
and
what
white?
happens if they decide not to have it continue?
But
Then it
that's,
doesn't continue. Taxpayers have
Then
a
you're back to having
choice.
a referendum.
No.
no,
Why? What am I
referendum.
missing? If you're saying, if the taxpayers say yes, we continue it, if the taxpayers say no, we don't continue it, in my mind, that's a referendum.
Oh, I see what
No.
you're saying, yeah.
It goes to a vote.
The term referendum has some charter implications to it, and that's very specific. So, and the charter and the local government act spell out criteria under which a true referendum has to take place. If council decides to do an open house for the public about the budget, you know, and sort of to get the will of the people, you can gauge the will of the people without going to a full-on referendum per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's difficult because those who have an opinion will attend.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, so I'd done a few of those public budget consultation, sort of seminars, I guess, in Tumbler Ridge during my time there. What I can share with council is that, when the people feel that the town's being run well, nobody shows up. So a couple of those, we brought urban systems in to explain the public works budget and the engineering, and we had like $1,000 an hour of consultants in the room. We had like 2 people show up in a 6-hour open budget, charts and graphs and stuff, and we're all like, oh God, please give me a question. I'm so ready for this. I've spent 3 days studying it. Nobody showed up.
Yeah.
When the mines went south, everybody cared all of a sudden what happened in
Of course. Of course.
So despite the fact that from the standpoint of town hall, nothing changed. Right. It was,
No.
that was a business issue. But
It'll give the people the option, they'll
Yeah.
be able to come and talk.
and hear
Yeah.
what they
Yes.
say.
and that's something neither this council nor the previous one had actually asked us to set up for you guys, was a public open house on this. I mean, like I say, we go above and beyond to do, prior to me coming here, the budgets, and you'll recall this, Councillor Smith, it was the CFO putting the chart of accounts in front of council. Here you go, guys, tell me what you want to change. Is that good? So I switched that, and now we do 6 meetings, and everything's all compartmentalized and proposed, so that, and I do that both for you guys, but on the off chance members of the public come in too. So I try to do my best to explain every line in the budget, so you guys know, the public knows. But like I say, and it's a weird scenario out there. When the public feels things are going well, they tend to disconnect themselves a little bit, and they really show up in force if and when things are going south. But it's not a bad idea that, if you want to do that, Arlene, for sure. We can, The problem is,
We have to approve this budget.
the timeline, the PRRD's asked us to get the budget to them.
Yeah, they need to have the budget, so they can have the budget brought to them so that they can give us the money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because they gotta make sure it goes through at least 2 board meetings over there too, for their board to, because even though we submit it to them, and in past years, it's always been, okay, great, here's your check for 34%. They've still got the opportunity to come back and say, guys, there's a huge spike in this line, we disagree with that, can you explain it? Same way you guys do, you know, to me.
Right.
Because they gotta do their own funding thing, so.
right.
So if we wait and hold off on this until January, February of the new year, we're really denying them that opportunity too.
Well, I'm not saying let's put off the budget or
No.
anything. I'm saying well, go ahead with the budget.
Yeah. Okay.
But I really believe that we should have information out there for the public.
Yeah.
That's the part that bothers me. And it isn't that this council put us in this position. It's not that the fire department put us in this position. It's just that it happened and nobody was made aware of it.
Yeah.
And I just find that very deceitful.
But then we can get out there and
Yes,
make it
Yes.
public.
yes, and I don't care either way what happens. I don't.
I don't know if I'd go as far as saying deceitful personally.
Well,
I
not
think
deceitful,
Yeah. I don't-
it just happened.
Yeah.
Transparent, that's a better
Yeah.
word.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody took on improving medical call response times in the village from a,
Oh, no.
scandalous.
No,
I think they thought they were doing a good thing, they just rushed it through.
Yeah,
Without
I can
proper
understand that.
consultation.
They're doing their job, they're doing the best of their
Yeah.
ability.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes along and almost, what should be, I was an angry taxpayer, like, why didn't I know about you people? Like, what is going on? And that's what I didn't like about it.
A major shift in service like that
Yes.
should have taken its time. Let's take 3, 5, 6 months to evaluate this, consider pros and cons, talk to the public,
Yeah.
go out with some kind of notice, should we do this, should we not? And it just seems from what we can see in the records that it was, presentation, motion on the floor, adopted, we're now a quasi-ambulance, and it happens sort of instantaneously, so.
Okay, can we make a motion?
Yeah,
Well, we got a motion on the floor already.
Okay.
That was for discussion, right?
Well, we have
This
to,
discussion.
yeah.
don't we have to pass it?
Yeah, so if, and as I mentioned in the report, it is gonna come back a second time, so this first one is really to see if you guys would like to see adjustments or further explanations into any of those GLs. If you're good with it as is, then yeah, a motion directing me to bring it back on the 20th, the 18th for final adoption would be
Okay.
awesome.
You want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Who's in favor? All in favor?
Sounds are you gonna make a motion about planning for the,
Information,
for,
I think we'll do that at a later date.
okay, on a to-do list?
Yeah. Please.
9, correspondence. Does anybody see anything that we need to discuss?
Nothing for me.
No.
Ken? Okay. Resolutions, none. Bylaws, none. Administration's report? You've read. Anything other than what we've read in your?
Nope, thanks very much.
Action items? Anybody see anything?
Nothing for me.
Okay. I guess we have to change the date then for the set up and meet and greet to hear concerns about the school from parents, right? Because it is October the 3rd.
Yeah, we should get rid of that.
I was actually just gonna suggest that.
Yeah, I think we should too.
It's a long
Take
overdue.
Yeah,
Okay.
can't say
Anything else?
But when you go down to the leadership forum, could we get reports back? I'd like to know what these meetings are bringing back to the community.
Well, we haven't gone yet.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's just a
I
point
think
that I'm
Maybe
bringing
see
up.
a report.
Yes, I saw it, yeah.
There was one here, did you ever hear from Ms. Peters? Is she happy with what she?
We sent it off, I typed her out a page and a half long letter, you know, some of the points from the meetings, and then sort of the FOI requirements for some of the questions she had. I politely mentioned to her that most of the information that she was looking for could be found on the website, and that the municipality wasn't in a position to, you know, analyze that data for her. I did give her the public census number, so if she wanted to apply any of those line items on a per capita basis, she's equipped with what she needs to do.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Then we'll go on to the capital and special projects.
When they're completed, how come they're not taken off? Or do you keep them up for the year?
For the capital and special projects, we keep them there all year.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on the capital and special projects?
The,
Chris?
Yep, thank you. So council saw my email about the Poos Park. Super disappointed to see, you know, that was where it was after all this time. I won't mention the contractor by name that really damaging their reputation, but needless to say, they seriously impacted their ability to do any future work with us. I have hired a new contractor to do that. He's provided me a written quote. Says it's going to take me about 3 days to do the job, and I'm starting Monday. So we will have that contract, that project done.
Good job.
By the end of the year. So I'm expecting we will be over 90% complete in the capital and special projects again this year. And I'm working on a full year-end report for you guys. It'll be here in December. Right now, it looks like all of the projects are at or under budget as well. So we're in good shape.
All right. Anybody have any other questions? I guess our calendars, council calendars. You have to remember our staff party, our Christmas party tomorrow night at 5:30 at the Fix, please. Anything
20?
on the calendar? Anybody? Yes, Chris?
Thanks. Just to let you guys know, December.
I was looking at you guys.
December 31st, we got the office listed as closed, but I do have 2 staff members coming in to do the year-end accounting system software rollover, and then tally up the final water bills too. If you guys see the lights on, it's it's legitimate, yeah.
We'll knock on the window.
That's how I got in tonight. Right?
Real scared of the heck out of Skylar, but yeah.
Scarlett wasn't here yet.
Yeah,
Scarlett got scared because she couldn't figure out who you were talking to.
So Skylar was graciously volunteered to come in and learn how to do the year-end rollover from Trina, so we should be in good hands.
So in January. So our first meeting would be on the 8th, right?
15th, I'm sure. It was,
Okay.
according to the bylaw, it should have actually been on, it's the first and third Wednesday of the month, so we should have held one on New Year's Day, but
No.
that one was,
So we're
Right,
skipping,
yeah.
so we're just going right to.
we're going right to the 15th. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Reports. All I have to report is, pardon?
Like yours.
Oh, no, all I have to report is coming here for the meeting with Sandra Biddle for the PC charities.
Special meeting.
Yeah. You? Do you have anything to talk?
Yeah, I've been busy.
You have lots.
Special meeting here with the Dawson Creek Charity Foundation. I also attended, I don't know what the date is, the last week of November, Wednesday, a meeting with us and area directors Hebert and Rose in regards to discussion with City of Dawson Creek. It's in progress. It's just discussion starting. They are looking at some assistance in paying for use of the pool and whatever, but it's just in discussions, whatever. We don't really know what is being offered and that. So then in the afternoon, I had a meeting about the agricultural crisis. Our farmers are really in a rough time, and insurance isn't, it's a mess. And also the caribou to get to the table, regional district is not part of the discussion, so they're working on that. Regional districts was on Thursday. Tuesday, we had a South Peace Health meeting with the City of Dawson Creek. I brought the agenda there. We're trying to recruit doctors and nurses and an MRI. I brought it up with that there is an MRI in Dawson Creek. Is it not that we could let them, that be the MRI instead of putting one in the hospital? We wouldn't have to maintain it. It would be a non-union job. We wouldn't be paying for the upkeep and the training and all that. But the province is absolutely not going to provide private services to be billed through MSP. So we are in negotiations for an MRI. And we're trying to get some recruitment for nurses done. But I did strongly, on behalf of Mayor McKetty, put that forward. And I attended a rezoning meeting of a farm being rezoned out here with Leonard Hebert. And I think that's enough for me.
Council people?
Going to museum dinner.
Whoa.
14th. And also, since you're having the seniors dinner, which I've heard about, I'd like to see how many seniors are going to attend that dinner and all the costs that are incurred.
Well, we haven't got a total yet. We have.
Yeah,
And how many
but
dogs?
this is after you do your dinner. And is it the 20th or the
Yeah.
26th?
No, it's the 20th,
It is the 20th.
yes.
Okay.
So far, a lot of stuff has been donated to Sandra, so, to DC charities. So we might not have to be putting out that much money. Her and I've been keeping in touch.
We had $500
Yep.
approved in the budget, and at last count from staff, I believe we had 8 people sort of registered or indicated here that they'd like to, they'd like to come.
Is that plus Trombley House?
Uh,
8 people at Trombley House and 8 people.
We haven't heard anyone from the Trombley House that I'm aware of,
Okay.
So that's 16.
but I don't know who's at the Trombley House, so.
Yeah, Trombley House had in fact canceled their dinner on the 20th when we reached out to them, so that already wasn't happening, so we weren't conflicting with it, which is good. Couple of questions have come up from staff.
And you said something about the seniors, so you talked to the seniors.
Or sorry, not Trombley House, the seniors, the
Yeah.
senior center canceled their dinner, sorry. So yeah, a couple of things, entertainment, and
We talked about
Council,
Academy
we spoke
Music.
about that, yeah, maybe, so we've got the PA system there, and we use that with, an iPhone or something like that, or a laptop for some Christmas music. We've actually got some Christmas music saved on a memory stick, I think, somewhere that we've used. Laptop. So, You could use that.
Well, it's got a system.
Yeah, okay, so we can go. Yeah, that's right, yeah, okay.
You just have to have somebody know how to use it.
Yeah. Something that came up, and I'm not sure it was actually sort of really boxed and defined in the motion, but what constitutes a senior? So we kind of done it a little bit open-ended, at least internally, and then the other question second to that was, do care people count as well? And we kind of started asking about that last week, and I kind of said yes. So if there's a senior that can't physically get into the dinner, and they needed somebody to assist them to get there, can
We
that
said that
person?
we would do that, yeah.
Yeah, can that person eat? And I said, yeah, absolutely, we're gonna go in the car. So, if
And that we would supply
So we don't have numbers as yet.
18 so far,
18.
16 so far.
Yeah.
That's better than we thought so far.
Yeah.
There's a long time.
I know.
And I think Sandra had spoken to, they're planning to be able to do up to about 90 or 92.
Yeah, and she's been working on gift baskets for everybody too, so.
Are those easy that you have from Poos or you don't?
I don't know. I'm assuming they're from Poos. Don't know.
Not
The
for
one, the
Poos?
eight people that have called in to say that they were.
Oh, sorry, don't know off the top of my head. Not that.
We have been asking where they live.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, it would have to be Poos people anyway, because they're the ones that are gonna get the thing in the mail, right?
We do have it up online too, so,
Okay.
yeah. But, yeah.
Well, I guess we won't kick anybody in.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law will be attending. We're giving her a big doggy bag.
Forget it, man. We'll watch for her.
Okay, anything else to report? No. Okay. Ken, you've been writing ferociously there.
I know, right? It's been a really interesting couple of weeks here. Really looking forward to the Christmas dinner with the village. I wasn't there last year. You guys went and scheduled that meeting for when I was out of town last year. So I made sure my calendar was open this year so I wouldn't miss out on Christmas dinner with you fine folk.
What do you want?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is. Anyway, we had a meeting, which was kind of cool with the Peace River Regional District regarding solid waste and what your plans are. And that was kind of interesting because, you know, they asked me who I represented. I said, no, I don't know. I represent HF Nodes. I represent the village of Pooskoo. And at the end, they come back and said, no, you're a representative. Well, they said you could wear many hats, but you're a representative of the Peace River Regional District, electoral area D. Oh.
Yes, your resident, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So that was really cool. So we'll be meeting in January, February, March as well to discuss. Every 10 years, they have to bring this up.
And they're also looking LGMA, whatever it is looking at doing a solid waste forum a couple days or something in June.
The attended for the first time ever.
Sorry.
Okay.
For the first time ever.
The PBR event, and that was super cool.
It's the PB.
Professional bull riding,
Oh.
right? And I, you know what? That was a class production. And if you guys haven't taken one in, I encourage you to go see it. You know, it was just tremendous, and I do thank Courtesy Matters for making that option available to me. We do have meetings next month for the Peace River Regional District and for Courtesy Matters. There's two other things that I wanted to bring up. and maybe for discussion, if we may, because I was slightly perturbed with yet another request from the city of Victoria to support them in the resolutions at the UPCM.
Yes.
And so I don't know, this was my thought.
Well, that was in the information. though.
It was in the information. But my thought was, and maybe we can discuss it, and you can tell
We
me
should
if I'm out
discuss
of
it
line.
then.
No, we should have discussed it then, but better late than never. That we motion, okay, that we as a council, the Council of Pouce Coupe, no longer consider letters of support from the city of Victoria regarding UBCM resolutions
Yeah, but they might end up being a good resolution.
as a result of their opposition to the oil and gas industry in British Columbia. Don't even send us stuff. You're trying to shut down our way of life. You have no respect for what we do and our efforts. I don't even want to hear what you have to say.
I can agree with you. The thing is, you never heard much about her trip to Fort McMurray.
No.
You know what I mean? Oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna, you know what I mean? But she never came back and said one way or the other. I don't know.
They still want to increase the number of cruise ships stocking, do they not?
What about paddling?
Yes, they have to, because they can't use oil and gas.
And, you know, I don't even know if that's a realistic motion to place.
It might be.
Why don't we draft up a resolution and take it to the Peace River Municipal Association and see what support we get for that? I make the motion that we do a resolution and we present it at the next Peace River Municipal Association.
Chris?
May I change that, Councilor Smith? I think we're talking about an initiative with some pretty significant political ramifications.
No kidding.
I think we should definitely have the mayor here to,
Yes, okay, table it, and then, but I'm thinking that would be a test to see whether we're,
I don't think we even need to table it. Maybe it's something we can bring up for discussion at the next meeting.
okay,
Because no motion has been made or seconded.
yeah. But keep that.
And that's it. Oh, yeah, and finally, right, listen, you guys are busy, you're busy, you have a home life, and the staff that works for us here in the village of Pouce. And as we get closer to Christmas, I wanted to say to all of you and those that are not here, how much we appreciate your work. And especially now this time of year, there's other things that we would probably rather be doing and our thoughts are elsewhere, but thank you for your service to the community.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we all do.
Yes.
Well,
Is there any camera?
oh, okay. Do your thing, honey.
That'd be the motion to adjourn. Turn the camera off.